here's your host, Chris Cooper.
Hello, this is Chris Cooper, and a big welcome to the Business Elevation Show on Voice America. It's great to be back with you again for yet another week. And I can't quite believe it. This is episode number 550. I'm pleased that I'm going to be celebrating it with a very good friend of mine today, Neil Laughton. Unfortunately, if you've tuned in and you were expecting Florence on the show today, then unfortunately I think she's been taken unwell and had to postpone. So I'm very grateful to Neil. Neil has stepped in to help me today, and we're going to be talking about harness your energy, grow your business, and hopefully soon we'll have Florence back on the show again in a few weeks' time. So I want to say, firstly, it's been a great week this week, and I want to thank Howard Bihar. We had Howard on an event on Monday. Some of you will remember Howard from the interview I did. He's the international president, or was, of Starbucks, and grew it from 300 people to 200,000. And we had a wonderful collective of members of my community who have all been on this radio show as a guest. And we had Howard Bihar to ourselves, and also with Paul and Magda Gavlik, who are not been on the show yet, actually. They're from Poland, but he is a 9 times platinum award-winning composer with 2 billion downloads on YouTube. So we were honored to have them this week. And I think what that session really did to me, it was really engaging and really energetic and passionate and enthusiastic. And it gave me a real lift at the beginning of the week. And I hope, therefore, that this show today can do that for you with Neil. I also want to say a thank you to Neil Laughton as well, because yesterday he invited me down to his beautiful home in the South Downs near Brighton in England. And I had the opportunity to meet his fantastic business support group and an opportunity to speak to them yesterday. And I spoke to them about this topic of energy and growing your business. And it therefore seemed like this morning, with the cancellation from Florence, it seemed a great opportunity to ask Neil, who'd seen me do this yesterday and engaged me with it, whether he'd like to join me and we could do it all over again and have a conversation between us. So we're going to talk about with somebody. So Neil Laughton, he is a master of adventurous entrepreneurship. His background is a fascinating one. He's a former Royal Marine Commando, helicopter pilot, a special forces officer, and his work today includes not only being a very successful leadership expert and hosting communities like the Business Support Group, but also floating developments. He's making floating luxury homes, which I think with climate change is a pretty smart move. He's also led, I think it's about 70, 80, you might correct me on that, expeditions on 7 continents across the world. He climbed Mount Everest with his friend Bear Grylls. And he's about to, actually, his latest venture is that he's going to try and achieve the highest ever mountain biking ascent and descent with a group in the Nepal area. And his book, which he was on the show about recently, Adventureholic, was described by Sir Ranulph Fiennes, OBE, as seriously inspirational. So Neil today is going to do some of the interviewing, and we'll chat about this subject. But I think I'm in rather capable hands today, which is very exciting. So a big welcome to Neil Laughton.
Hi, Chris. Great to join you. Thanks for inviting me fairly last minute.
Yeah.
And we were doing this about 8 hours ago. I'd have a little bit more energy, but we'll try and sustain it for an hour. But no, great to join you today. And thank you very much for coming down to speak to my CEO group yesterday. Some great feedback. And so I'm sure this conversation will be a great follow-up to that. And I look forward to asking you a few questions about this topic.
But you're very welcome. So Well, I'm going to kind of hand over to you, and I know you're gonna ask me the questions today. So
Yeah,
you've got the
it's a
reins.
kind of role reversal, isn't it? So,
Yeah.
why don't I kick off by asking you, Chris, why do you think energy is so important today?
Well, I think if we look at the world right now, then it's very easy to see this rather negative and gloomy narrative. And people are feeling that narrative. I mean, they're seeing it in the news, and our very good friend at the moment serving 5,000 pizzas a day on the border of Ukraine and Russia. It's horrendous what's going on in Gaza. There's what's going on with governments. There's financial situations, and people are really feeling it in the pocket right now. And many people are struggling financially, and that has an impact on the mood within organizations. And therefore, I think right now there is a tendency which is merging more towards gloom and darkness as opposed to, light. And I think it's really important, I think, to be mindful about how, as a leader, we are energetically managing how we show up each day, because otherwise we could find ourselves with teams of people who are at effect with the world rather than on the front foot. And therefore, I think as a leader, more than ever, it's important to manage our energy and create an environmental space at work which becomes like an oasis. It becomes a safe place outside of this gloom, and helps people realize that it is well worth getting up in the morning, that there are exciting things to do, that they're contributing to something that is bigger than themselves. And that takes a bit of a shift, I think, in the mindsets of many leaders and organizations today. But those companies who can do that, I think there's remarkable potential. And we look at some of those organizations that, what do you call them, the Magnificent Seven in America, the Nvidias and the Apples and the Googles and the Metas. And, quite a lot of those are pretty engaging organizations for people to work in. And I worked for Mars, and that was. And you think back to that energy, what was created, and I imagine you, Neil, having been involved with the special forces, and when you're leading expeditions, I imagine you can't afford everybody to fall into a mood of despair. You need
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's sort of tied in a little bit with enthusiasm, and I kind of sometimes link energy and enthusiasm together as a package, because if you have both of those things, then there is great positivity and optimism within a group. And yes, you're right. I do work and have worked with small teams in the military, on expeditions and in business, and I quite like to get you to focus down, because some of us haven't been in these big corporates. So if we look towards the sort of the SME sector, which certainly in the UK forms a massive percentage of the businesses that are out there, how would you say, Chris, you discovered the importance of energy and being in flow when it comes to producing business results for SMEs?
Yeah, I mean, I think what I've realized, and I've done a lot of SME work as well as big company brand work. Um, but what I've seen over, I think probably the 18 years I've had my own business in particular, is that I've realized that my work entails going into companies and helping to develop the leadership team and helping to develop the teams in the business and the cultures and creating vision, etc. And what I've really kind of distilled over the last year in particular is that actually what happens when those organizations are really working well and small businesses working well, the SMEs are working really well, is there is an energetic culture. And it's not a kind of a rah-rah, people fist bump in the air type of culture. It's a real deep and meaningful sense of presence. It's a feeling of light. And I think I did share with you yesterday this idea, which I picked up a number of shows ago from Lance Secretan, who was a guest. And it was the notion that inspiration is about lighting a flame inside somebody so they can sustain themselves. And we have to be very careful not to put that flame out. But, that flame, when you see people one by one sort of lighting up and feeling illuminated versus motivation, which is really building a fire under somebody, which organizations are typically done, with more the command and control type of structure. So I think what I've noticed is that where organizations perform through the work that I've been involved in, I see people lighting up. I see the energy lifting in many ways. I see the place becoming brighter, people becoming more engaged with each other, teams working more effortlessly, people in the right roles doing the right jobs. And when that happens, there is the energetic effect of all that starts to result in significant benefits, because if your people are happy, they then make the customer happy. So it's definitely a energetic shift that happens.
Yeah, it's one of the things I really took away from yesterday's session, the concept of inspiration v motivation. And I love the way that you described, motivation is a fire that's lit underneath you, as in you're being pushed into it. And in my life as a public speaker, people ask me to come and motivate their sales force or whatever. Actually, it's really difficult to do that because, yes, like you say, you're lighting a fire under them, and people don't really like that. What's important is to light a fire within, inspire people, and they will go the extra mile for you. But Chris, yesterday you talked about 4 areas of energy that we can use, all of us, to boost us. Yeah. So can we get into the nitty gritty and start with, I think the first thing that you talked about, and that's physical energy. How do we harness that?
Yeah, I think you know this better than me with all your incredible physical pursuits and activities. And I know we're going to go to in June. One of the things go Snowdon, and I shall walk up Mount Snowdon, hike up it, and you'll be carrying a bike up on your shoulder when you do that. But what I certainly learned about physical energy, physical energy is that enables us to do work. We obtain energy through the food, that physical energy through the food that we eat and consume. And our bodies are brilliant at extracting 95% or so of the energy that's in that food stuff. And it's stored within our body, all around and within the cells within our body. And that enables us to, physically act and move. However, if we're physically fit, and we were exercising regularly, our cardio system becomes fit. And if you think about those bellows inside your chest, they take up the inflation and deflation plus the movement of your heart pumping 24/7. That takes up an enormous amount of energy. But if you're fitter, it becomes much more efficient. It means you have more energy to use elsewhere. So I think there is something very important about keeping physically fit, and as we get older as well, we've got to keep ourselves moving, and we've got to keep our body in trim, and ideally, we do some weight bearing exercise as well within that to keep ourselves strong. But what I noticed, you and I, a few years ago, I did an event called the Artemis Kindrocket quadrathlon, and you were a founder of that event. We can talk about that. It's deemed to be possibly the toughest one-day endurance event in Scotland. And what I learned during that year, and that was a year my dad was dying of pancreatic cancer, was I started training for that event in the September prior to it being in July. For me, this is a midlife crisis. It wasn't that midlife feeling. It's time I did something more kind of physical and achieved another physical goal again after a few years since I'd done marathons and things. But that act of exercising and building myself up to be able to do that event, and eventually I was doing multiple cycles and runs and swims and kayaks a number of times a week. And despite my father being so wretchedly ill, I couldn't help but have a positive attitude and a positive mindset with all that exercise. In fact, my business also, I was doing tons of exercise, but my business actually was doing far better than it had the year before. So my performance was improving. How I was showing up in each moment was improving by having that extra physical energy. I mean, you must feel that with when you're training for your incredible endeavors.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I mean, remember somebody said once that the summit day on Everest, you burn about 20,000, up to 20,000 calories.
Wow.
So, of course, that your comment about food being important, it's actually critical. Without putting the right, energy into your stomach that then transfers to energy to the rest of the muscles and brain, etc., then you're toast. I was going to ask you, do you have like a weekly fitness physical regime?
Well, interestingly, I've been sort of building myself up from a couple of years ago. I had surgeries and things which impacted me, but I basically my exercise is walking the dog every morning. So I get up and I walk the dog, early, come rain or shine. So that starts me off well. It gets me out into nature. It gets me feeling part of something bigger than just myself. So I always have that as a sort of base level, and then on top of that, I do some cycling as well. I'm about to build in, and when the weather's bad, we've got a lot of potholes over here, Neil, don't we? I've started doing more on Zwift online with my bike actually because I feel safer. I can listen to music at home, and then I'm just building in and starting to this weekend to build in more physical strength work actually because I've been lacking a bit on the strength work. I'm starting to feel that. So that's going into the plan.
Yeah, no, it's good. I think if you go days or sometimes weeks without exercising, getting fresh air, walking the dog, whatever it is, you do really feel slightly deflated
Yeah.
physically. And I think getting out, even just for a walk or to walk the dog. I mean, I do some 100 press ups, sit ups every day as a kickstart, and then try and do two, three, four times, decent sort of 40-minute session on a bike or normally outdoors. I don't like gyms personally, but I'd rather walk up or run up a hill and get that rain in the face and so forth. So I think yeah, you're right. Physical activity is really important, providing that energy for you. So let's move to, I think number two was a mental energy. Tell us about that.
Yeah, so I think mental energy is, we our brains actually, they're burning energy all the time, and you burn about as much energy to have a light bulb on permanently inside your brain. So, your brain is utilizing energy to enable you to think. I mean, I'm no scientist, so if anyone's listening who is, they probably know more about this than I do. But I think what we have to do is we have to focus and we have to be able to do our work. And in business, it's very cerebral. It's quite tiring. I think a lot of people avoid truly deeply thinking, actually. They go into autopilot because actually it's quite tiring. It's quite draining. You have to make yourself do that. I think things that are important, like the kind of nutrition that you eat. I realize people eating very fatty diets, but I feel better when I eat good, healthy, natural products than processed food, for example. The other area, and probably an area I struggle the most with personally, is around sleep. Having good sleep patterns and having to relax at night. I'm somebody, my mind's always going, so I struggle to turn it off sometimes. But if you can get your good sort of 7-8 hours sleep a night, then that's also going to put you mentally in a place to be able to focus. I don't know what your
Yeah, we
thoughts.
actually had somebody in the breakout session yesterday who struggled really with having how I would describe a sort of mental calmness. They even at midnight, this person was struggling to have that sort of mental calmness. And is that kind of what you're talking about? Is switching
Yeah,
off the bad
yeah.
news news channels or you know, turning the lights out so you've got some darkness so you can just rest your brain.
Yeah. I mean, I do some meditation when I'm in that, just trying to calm my mind down in that situation. That often helps, and I've got a little routine when I can't sleep that I go through. However, something like on Monday night, you came to my event, the online event with Howard, and just after it, I was just so excited by it. I was just so uplifted and energized, and I had so much feedback from so many people, and I filled another of my community groups after that event, and people were sending me messages and chats, and it was really invigorating. I was so excited that it was 4:30 before I could calm myself down enough to sleep. So it's not all because I'm worrying about things. It's just that I'm just excited with the joy of sometimes of when things go well, and then yeah, sometimes if things don't, it's playing on your mind a little bit. But I struggle then to calm myself down to get to a place when, I mean, sometimes sleep just seems pointless when there's so many things to do and enjoy, and I struggle a little bit with that. But I go through phases where I sleep really well, and then I go through phases when I struggle, and I have to practically start to apply some techniques, I guess, to try and help myself.
Well, it may have been the adrenaline of hosting such a wonderful group, including one of the founders of Starbucks. I mean, I would have been hyper as well, having hosted that. But as a guest, yes, I was excited. But then you brought on the musicians and played some incredibly soothing and calming and wonderful inspirational music. So I went floating off into to my next meeting, extremely mentally calm. So we're on the same page there, particularly. Now, yesterday you talked the third energy, and that is emotional energy.
Yeah.
And if I'm honest, I can't quite remember all of the things that you said. So do share with the audience what you mean by emotional energy.
Well, we've got a couple of minutes till commercial break, so we'll probably have to just, talk a little bit about this and more after it. But we think about it, our emotions, our thoughts and our feelings determine our actions and our results. So we've talked about physical energy and we've talked about mental energy, but now we're kind of talking about feelings. And I suppose we started to move into that. I had emotions after that event. It takes energy to hold the space when you have people, and there's all this clutter going on. Are people going to turn up? Is it going to go well? I had musicians to manage as well as managing Howard and that incredible audience that we had on Monday, and the same for you yesterday with your event. So I think we go through emotions of anger. We're designed to feel. We have anger, sadness, fear, hurt, guilt, happiness, joy, and all of these emotions can either take us upwards or they can take us downwards depending upon what's happened. We go through life basically with a lot of things happening. So it might be our homes, everything goes through a period of growth, maturity, and decline. Whether it's a relationship, our health, whether it's your car, whether it's your house roof, and whether it's projects at work. And what it means is about 50% of the time, things are going to be out of balance. People talk about balance, but stuff happens, and those can have an impact on our emotions. And I think one of the most important things when it comes to emotions is to be able to, a technique a lot of my clients now use is to be able to reframe things, to be able to, if something really tough happens, to reframe it in a positive rather than a negative. So I'll give you just one example. A client called me up last year and said, Chris, I had a situation where my house was burning down. And I thought, what would Chris Cooper tell me to do? I was watching my house on fire. And as it was burning down and the roof was on fire, I thought, actually, I've got to reframe this. Well, I never actually liked the carpet. So if we lose that, that's the end of the world. And thank goodness my laptop's not in there, and my car's not next to the house, so I'm not going to lose that as well. And there's nobody in it, so no one's going to get actually hurt. And you can replace the house, but you can't. So she said, I did all of these things. I just reframed and reframed and reframed. And at the end of it, I'm now living in a hotel, and it's okay. The house will get fixed, but thank you for teaching me that, because normally I would have gone into absolute depths of despair. Well, this week I was talking to Brian Smith of UG, last week of UG, the founder, and he has this fascinating mantra, and it includes enthuse over apparent defeat. So there's a good example of reframing. You think you're being defeated by something has happened, but actually enthuse over it, because often you feel a sense of defeat, and you will have felt this in your expeditions, I think, when you think, gosh, almost can't see a way out of this now. But what seems to happen then is you come out of the other end with more clarity, and you achieve your results, and you feel even more excited by it, having had that period of darkness just before it. So yeah, emotions
Very
reframe
good.
helpful, I think. So I think on that note, we'll go to commercial break. We'll be back with you in a couple of minutes, and then I'll hand over to Neil to we'll talk about the fourth one as well, I think.
You are tuned into the Business Elevation Show with your host, Chris Cooper. If you have a question or comment about our show, please direct your emails to chris@chriscooper.co.uk. That's chris@chriscooper.co.uk. Now back to Chris Cooper.
Hi, it's Chris Cooper. I'm with Neil Laughton, and Neil's sort of turning the table on me. But I want to turn the table back on you, actually, Neil, because I want to know from an emotional perspective, when you're leading expeditions, and you've led them, across the Arctic and Antarctic, and in boats and flying vehicles. I think you had the first flying car, and you were flying it across the Mediterranean and landing in Timbuktu. I'm not sure you were supposed to land there, but you did. And you do all these incredible. I mean, I saw the most scariest things I ever saw before I knew you was with you and Bear trying to get to the highest microlight flight above Everest, and it was just terrifying, I think, to watch that. But how do you deal with emotional energy? How do you deal with it personally when you're feeling maybe fear? And how do you deal with it in an expedition when things are going wrong?
Yeah, I think you have to have a pragmatic view of the situation. You've got to make sometimes rapid and very clear, concise, good decision-making process. And I think for me, with a lot of years of experience doing this stuff, you kind of it helps to clarify the brain to act in a certain way to the benefit of your team. The other thing I say is that leadership is a privilege and an honor, and the process of good leadership, making those good decisions, thinking about the what ifs scenarios is all part of being a leader. And when things that you can predict do happen, you've got a bit of a head start in your head as to what you might options that you might go to. And of course, the beauty of leadership is that your brain is occupied with those responsibilities and those thoughts and decisions that have to be made. And that, for me, is the reason why you can look an avalanche, crevasse, rock full in the face, because you're having to deal with with that situation and trying to get your team out of the problem area. So hopefully that's a bit of an insight into leadership and good decision making, in order to be more emotionally intelligent from an energetic and leadership perspective.
Yes, yes. Now, I have actually been in an avalanche and experienced that. Fortunately, it slid right in front of me rather than taking me with it, and the noise of it and the impact of it. Very easy to be at effect rather than be at cause, and go into kind of almost like a panic mode. Not that I find myself doing that, but what happens when somebody goes into a sense of panic in a situation like that? How do you manage it? I mean, we get in business, you get people going into having a meltdown.
Yeah, so we had a paddleboarding tournament the other day, and somebody fell off their board. They had a life jacket on, a life preserver. There was no reason for them to panic at all. The lake was about 6 foot tall. You could probably put your feet down, but they went into a mild, state of panic. And I just swam up to them, dived in, swam up to them, put my arm around them, reassured them, and started to take some action to change the situation. So in that case, it was just getting that person back onto the flotation device, the paddleboard, and then getting them into shore. And that was just pretty simple process. It gets more difficult when the situation is genuinely really dangerous, because ultimately you're facing imminent death, and you have to be fairly resilient to cope with that in the face, and have the wherewithal to make good decisions to get yourself out of it.
Yeah,
doesn't always work either. It can be, as we all know, not work out, so to speak.
yeah. Sounds like compassion's important. As you were saying, the first bit you did, you went and gave us some comfort, and then practically thinking about the situation.
Well, as a leader, you have to be thinking about the team and your people the whole time. That is your responsibility. So it's crucially important.
Yeah.
And you as a leader must have, we're talking today about energy in all its forms, and we'll go on to the fourth one in a second. But it is the most important thing to be enthusiastic and energetic around your people, because if you're not, they will follow suit. They will come down with you. And so if you're in a terrible mood, you're not positive, you're not optimistic, you're not energetic and enthusiastic, they will follow. Yeah. And that's just human nature.
Because that's just on that point, though. I mean, you actually, we did a little exercise yesterday with our hands, but we don't have to say anything for people to pick up on our mood, do we? You feel that energy from someone, if it's negative, if it's positive, and that permeates everybody, can permeate everything. So, somebody can be quiet, but they might be seething inside, and you pick it up.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
pick it up.
Now, Chris, yesterday you were talking about a tricky one for me: spiritual energy.
Yeah, I think. There's a lot of people would describe themselves, and certainly in my network, as being spiritual rather than religious, and I think that's having a sense that you're part of something bigger that maybe you don't fully understand. And maybe there's something also guiding you and kind of supporting you on that journey, so you're not completely alone. And I kind of, for me, things like serendipity happens. Sometimes things are so serendipitous and so surprising. You meet the right person at the right time. You imagine somebody and a friend, and they call you up. It's some strange things that happen. But what I've got a sense as I've got older is that maybe there is a little bit more going on than I fully understand. And I find, for example, just connecting with nature being really great. So when I take a walk in the woods, I almost feel the energy of the trees. I feel like I'm part of something bigger than me. I sometimes in my mind, if I'm going through a real a worry or a concern, what I do is I imagine myself floating from outer space towards the planet, and I look at the planet and it's all lit up and all the countries, and I think then actually how significant is my problem really? And I will sometimes go for a walk and I will ask myself the answer to a question, and it seems to miraculously pop up in my brain. Um, so I just have a feeling that I'm maybe part of something bigger than I understand. And actually, I think it's Rumi who said, go through life as though it's rigged in your favor. So, and when we have a lot of mantras, don't we? Howard Bihar, he used to frame all lovely quotes and mantras, and they gave him energy. There's something energetic from words, and they energetically can lift you too. So I don't know if that explains to your answer. I don't know. For you, I also see, for example, I see often the military and special services people that I meet being quite spiritual in some ways.
Not necessarily my experience, but I think the interesting connection between emotional and spiritual is quite strong. I think there's a connection between the two, but yeah, in special forces, you don't have much time to be kneeling down and praying to your God. It's too much to be doing normally. But talked yesterday, Chris, about being energetic, starting from within and yourself. But actually, yesterday you were talking to my clients, many of whom employ lots of people. And I was wondering how you would advise people to engage the energy from and within their teams.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing, what you need to do each day, I believe, is you get yourself into an energetic state where you're on the front foot. You don't turn up in a bad mood because it affects everybody. You turn up on the front foot, energized and engaged, because you've maybe had various different practices that you adopt. For some people, it's gratitude. For some people, it's getting that walk and that exercise in. Some people, it's listening to great music. It's listening to or reading something that's motivating. And you start on the front foot. And then your job as a leader is to be almost, if you're a CEO, you're the chief energy officer. You look and spot the energy in the organization. You see where people are lacking. And it might be that people have got things going on at home which are impacting them. You can just simply asking them, how are they? You'll give you a response, and you look at that both in terms of their physical response and their body language, as well as the words they use. So, if someone barely grunts or acknowledges you, maybe they might not have seen you, but actually it might be there's something going on. Because what we want to do is we want people to resonate in that organization, because what you don't want them doing is then going and talking to your customers on the phone and infecting them negatively, because they're brand ambassadors for your company. So how you start the day is how you end the day, but you need to be lifting that energy of that business when you're in it. One of the things that I find very, very helpful with companies, I do various programs and I use various methodologies and tools and diagnostics with them, is to ensure your people are in the right roles energetically for them. So many people end up doing jobs that they're not well suited for, which doesn't sit with their flow. So I use a system. This one I use is called Talent Dynamics. I've done over 1,000 profiles with clients, and what it does, it helps you understand where somebody is in the cycle of doing business. Are they going to be great at strategy or great at marketing? Are they going to be great at identifying new client opportunities and speaking to finding new business? Are they going to be better at maybe negotiating contracts or handling customer service or managing projects or managing behind the scenes your finance or the legal matters of your business, or compliance if it's a lot of my clients are insurance clients, or working on your processes? Using a diagnostic like that can help people understand where they're most suited. And it avoids two things, because when people recruit, often two mistakes happen. Firstly, somebody recruits somebody like themselves. So they think, oh, yeah, I like them. They're just like me. And they go and give them a job. But actually, you might not be the person suited to doing that job either. So you want to find somebody who's more suited to it and really is like a cat with the cream, in that role. The second thing that can happen is people will read a role profile and they'll be able to persuade you that it's them when it may not be. So many of my clients use this system and they buy tokens off me. Sometimes they get me involved in recruitment for big positions. And on many occasions, we have caught clients out, so potential interviewees out, who have told us one thing, and we've discovered through seeing the profile that they fill out and then challenging them and questioning them that actually they weren't as suited to the job as they were letting on. But also we've used the system to identify people from within who are really suited to the role and will be happier. And when people are doing work that they're happy about, so in their flow with, they're happier, they are more fulfilled, they're more engaging. And you get every person doing jobs that they are suited to within a team, the team starts to really, really fly.
You and I have used Talent Dynamics in the past, and it's a really useful tool, I think, to not just analyze individuals, their personality profiles, but also if you're, a company board, are they of the same type of personality which
Correct.
is against all the norms of diversity. You want different ways of people are thinking, different personalities, different characteristics on the board and within your team. So that's really important. Quickly tell us, what are the banana skins that we should be looking out for in terms of engaging ourselves and our teams with the energetic approach?
Oh, the banana skins. I think you're gonna. Let me just say.
What will we lose in terms of energy? What are we losing, from our teams?
Well, I think some of the banana skins are things like we need to all be very present. And one of the things that happens is a lot of people spend a lot of time in conversation or in meetings, and they're thinking about the future. They're thinking about what they're going to have for tea, or what they're going to do, the theatre they're going to go to in the evening, or dealing with the kids. They're going to, or they're thinking about something that happened last night, or yesterday, or last month, or they're sitting there thinking, do I like that person, or do they like me? And I think what we have to do is we have to try and ensure in meetings that we're focused in the now, because if we're not focused in the now, you can imagine all of that energy is being lost. We're maybe spending too long in meetings as well because people aren't fully present. So you can become much more efficient as well when you've got an energized team focusing in the now than a team that is mentally all over the place, really. So I think that's something to really watch out for, because you're going to get much more value from your people. So the other banana skin I would say is wrong people in wrong jobs. And we have done work where I've had some examples recently where somebody was managing a huge amount of people. They were all demotivated. This guy was very senior, but he was very introverted and very analytical. Um, and the decision was made. In fact, in one situation, a guy recently volunteered to give up his whole team. They thought it was going to be terrible getting his team off him because he wasn't really suited to doing it. And he volunteered, having seen this work, to let go of his team. His team's gone elsewhere to somebody who's more suited to managing people, and he's much happier because he hasn't got the stress of managing a team. That's happened to me on several of occasions with people. So I don't know. There's probably lots more. The other thing I would just say is that leaders have got to be prepared to change and hold the mirror up to themselves, because if they aren't getting the results that they want, 9 times out of 10, it's due to the thoughts and feelings and the management of the leadership team over the last 2 or 3 years. So I see people blaming it's that department, sales aren't doing this, marketing aren't doing that, operations aren't delivering this, the factory's not doing that, the warehouse is not doing that. What you have to do is you look at yourself and say, well, what actually am I not seeing? What am I not doing? How am I influencing this? Because it might be a lot more than you realize.
Yeah, quite. It's having a clear vision and having great values within your organization important?
It's absolutely essential. It's really important to have this guiding vision that really can engage and excite your team. And now it's interesting on Monday, Howard Bihar, when Starbucks were a couple of hundred people and a few outlets.
I
Um,
know what you're going to say. I was amazed by this quote. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Howard did some work. You may be familiar, some of you, with Jim Collins. So they brought in a very well-known author, an expert at this. And what they did is they came up with this. They came up with that the Starbucks kind of purpose really is to inspire and nurture the human spirit, one person, one cup, and one neighborhood at a time. Now, how much more inspiring to inspire and nurture the human spirit? It wasn't about selling as many cups of coffee. In fact, Howard said it's not about the coffee, it's actually about people. They want to inspire and nurture the human spirit. Now, how engaging is it to be part of a company who wants to inspire others and nurture and be a responsible citizen than be somebody who's trying to maximize the amount of cash and put the amount of cash in the bank, often to the short-term expense of their customers. So that is really important, having a really compelling vision and a set of values that really engage. I've got a client recently and we worked really hard with them. They had values previously like excellence, respect, teamwork. Nobody could encounter them. They couldn't remember them. They just sat on bits of paper. They sat on the walls. But now their values are that we care, and life is an adventure. Because life's got ups and downs, hasn't it? But we're in it together because together we work. And if we do all of that, if we care, we accept that life is an adventure, but we're in it together, we're all going to flourish. So there's this new set of values that are permeating everything. But people, when they understand them, can each day feel like there's a part of something that's bigger, that's going to contribute ultimately to a better world. So it's really important to get this right, Neil.
Yeah, no, I love that. I nearly fell off my chair when I heard Howard say, head of Starbucks, founder of Starbucks, said it's not about the coffee.
Yeah.
I just couldn't believe it. It was a brilliant line, and so important. And you mentioned the world's highest bike ride that we're attempting to do later in the year. It's so important to be so clear on the vision. The vision is to get to the top of the mountain and cycle down, but there's so many different permutations. There's 10 of us going for that record. And I've made it really clear to the team that it doesn't matter if it's me, Jonesy, or whoever else. As long as one person on the team collectively, we succeed.
Yeah, absolutely. So we just noticed we've got just a couple of minutes left, Neil.
Great. Well, let's finish with asking you, to leave us with a couple of nuggets, final thoughts on this topic of how to bring energy to your life and to your work and to your people.
I think whatever your role is, be a chief energy officer. Be mindful of your own energy and the impact that it has on others. Because if you can lift people with your energy, and if you can leave everybody with, their candle, a flame inside them, you're going to be very, very successful in the work that you do. And you make sure that what you don't do is put that candle out in others. What I've realized through my show is that what I try and do is I try and build a connection with people wherever I can. And I'm always amazed now, having done 550 of these, that I might meet somebody I've not interviewed for 6 years. But when we meet again, we're suddenly like great friends again. And what I hope I'm doing is just there's a little bit of a flame still left for me because I've made them feel good. I've shone the light on them. It's been about them. I've listened to them. I've helped and supported them. And I think if you go through life being mindful of your energetic state and the impact on others, and you aim to bring people together and connect and collaborate and keep them, build these flames so everybody's feeling alive, you're going to achieve incredible results like Neil Laughton does on his adventures. So which to find out more about that, you need to read Adventureholic, by the way.
Thanks, Chris. Well, that's really, really kind. And, a really fascinating run through the concept of bringing energy to yourself and to your people in your organizations. And I think for me, that your comment about don't try and light a fire under people, light a fire within them is so important and crucial. And well done you.
Well, thank you, Neil. It's been brilliant to chat again today, and thank you, and best wishes to your incredible business support group as well. It was lovely meeting them yesterday. On next week's show, Sergio Montiel and Manuel Manga. Sergio is from Mexico. Manuel originally from Colombia, though lives in the United States now. And we're talking about the evolutionary leadership of men, the adaptations that men are going to need to make to really thrive in today's world and for the world to thrive with them. So I look forward to that conversation next week. Once again, a huge thank you to Neil Laughton. Is it Laughton and Co, Laughton.co, your website?
That's right.
Your website, remind us of your website. So people want to check out your adventures.
Laughton.co.
Laughton.co, I thought it was. And if you've got any questions, comments, I'd love to hear from you. It's Chris at chriscooper.co.uk. And take care, everybody, and look forward to hearing how you felt about the conversation with Neil today. And go away, think about your energy, have a great week, and go and energetically impact people in a very positive way. Go and elevate people and go out and make a difference this week. Take care.